this is very much a group effort. So let's do introductions. We'll start there and go to the gallery as well. So Angel, tell us who you are and what you do.
Hello, I'm Angel Sims. I am the broker manager founder of Suburban and Urban Real Estate Services located in the historic North Nashville area. And I've been doing that 28 years, along with other things, community advocate, and all those other things. But that's what I do.
Excuse me. Good afternoon. I'm Councilwoman Quante Toombs, representing District 2. If you're not familiar with District 2 that is part of North Nashville, Bordeaux, Haynes Trinity along the north side of the river, and some of East Nashville going up Dickerson to Farley Parkway.
Charles Robert Bone. I'm a lawyer with Spencer Fain, Bone McAllister.
And also served on the TIF committee.
I served on the previous
I'm
TIF
going to bring
committee.
that up a few times.
The link.
That's right. I'm Berkeley Allen, a Metro Council member at large, and a mechanical engineer, which will not be much help at all. But former budget chair, so I do know numbers.
Mick Nelson, I am an affordable housing developer.
Fiona Holter, I'm a developer, commercial developer with CA South. I've been in Nashville for about 15 years, and I say I'm a recovering civil engineer, so that may or may not help. So.
Kelly.
Kelly Flannery, Finance Director.
Thank you for being here.
Aaron Pratt, Budget Officer.
Okay, great. All right. Glad we got some financial folks here. Thank y'all for being here. And we hope to have LaTanya Chandler here shortly. She had other meetings that we think have gotten moved out of the way, so I think that she will be here. So thank you for being here and for doing introductions. I will just say again, since I forgot to turn this on earlier, this is the Tax Abatement Study and Formulating Committee. I'm going to call it TASIF for short, unless somebody comes up with something better, but that's less of a mouthful. And so we are going to hopefully begin a 6-month process, and I'm going to read the legislation that was passed just to kind of remind us of what our goals were. And I'm also going to silence my phone because I just heard it do something. So going back to the legislation that was passed by the council during the summer. Find it. All right. What we said we wanted to do was establish a 7-person committee. This committee shall endeavor to study how the Metropolitan government has utilized and potentially could utilize tax incentives to incentivize use of property in a way that contributes to the public good and to formulate recommendations for its implementation in a more transparent, equitable, effective, understandable, and fiscally responsible manner. Such studies shall assess how tax incentives are awarded, whether alternative lawful applications exist for tax incentives, and whether methods for awarding tax incentives should be expanded given the challenges of Nashville's growth to the preservation or construction of affordable housing, small business locations, and community necessities like grocery stores and child care facilities, and whether there should be a cap on an overall tax incentive allocations or individual categories of tax incentive allocations, and if so, to recommend a method for setting a cap. And finally, to acknowledge and incorporate, where appropriate, the information and recommendations provided by the Tax Increment Financing Study and Formulating Committee report issued May 17th, 2019. So that's kind of our overall mission, and I will make sure that document is on our website just so people can go back to it, because sometimes it's just kind of handy to say, wait a minute, what is it we're doing? Because there's lots that needs to be done. And I don't know if it has been set up yet, but we are modeling this very much after, welcome. Mary Jo, we made everybody introduce themselves. So
Mary Jo Wiggins, I work in the finance department.
Thank y'all for being here. So we'll, similar to what the tax increment financing or TIF study did, set up a website where all our documents will be located, both so we can access this and also so the public can. And then also, to some degree, sort of follow the system that they did just for getting to where they were. And so with that, I want to guess, go over I had sent out sort of my first attempts at a work plan. I think you got it right there, Angel. I think I've got 2 copies of it. I'll send one over there. You can share and look at it. It's just, that's kind of my starting point for what I think we need to be doing. And again, Lawyerbone, if you see stuff that y'all did in your 6 months of study that we ought to be doing, speak now and we'll add it to it, or we'll add it as we go along. So essentially, our goal is to study what's out there, come back with recommendations, which may end up being policy. It may just be, hopefully it won't just be a report. I mean, our hope is it will go from here to the council actually adopting a document, again, that people can look at in the future. We've talked about who all's on the council. We didn't talk about a sort of, many of you are representing somebody. Angel, you're representing Economic Development Department, which is LaTanya, who's representing the mayor. Quante and I are representing the council, and then the council actually was able to nominate several people, and Mick, you're representing planning for affordable housing. So just to get those roles there. So but I think we all know who needs to be remembered as we kind of think about what the needs are. There are a number of other people, either that in the process of being asked about what this committee should do, or if they would consider being on this committee, offered to lend their expertise as well. And finance has graciously offered to lend their expertise and has shown up, which I'm grateful for, and we will be.
Not exactly how it happened.
I'm sure you were gracious. And I'm so good at arm twisting, so I really appreciate y'all being here. The legislation says that we'll do our job in 6 months. If we do it faster than that, great. We are off to a little bit of a late start. And here's Margaret. We've made everybody introduce themselves. So
Hi,
this is
I'm Margaret Darby, and I'm the director of the council office and counsel to the council.
And we appreciate it. And she just sent out the council agenda and now is jumping right into this. So thank you for being here.
Oh, just trying to
Never a dull moment.
do all the things.
All the things. So the general arc that I have laid out so far is to kind of begin by looking at sort of what the different tax abatements are, what the TIF study looked at and concluded, and then to have several info sessions with kind of key resources. I think that would be people who are experts on TIF. Some of those are in the room, or on how metro financing works and how it works to take something out before it ever goes into the revenue projection. And also developers that have used the different tax abatement things. And I'd like to look at what other cities are doing, then just kind of throw out some brainstorming and begin drafting a summary and put a report together. So, and then again, as I said, I think our work product will be a document similar to the TIF study. That one was then followed up by an official study by an out-of-town expert.
Yeah, on behalf of MDHA.
On behalf of MDHA, that came back and looked at the economic impact. And that may be additional information that we may decide to recommend as we go along. So that's very general arc on that. Any comments on obvious stuff that needs to be articulated and further written into that at this point?
I have a question. Are we going to look at checks and balances and see how the dollars spent and the dollars that are returned back, what are the uses? Are we going to examine the process by which these awards are being awarded? Who gets them? How do they get them? What they do?
Yeah, in the process. LaTanya?
My bad.
We are so glad you're here.
Yes, I'm glad I made it.
And we're going to talk about scheduling at the end, so thank you for being here.
Sure.
And everyone has introduced themselves. If
It worked out. It worked out.
That's so great. I'm so glad. So, Tell us who you are and what your role is.
Latanya, Economic Development Chief, Mayor's Office.
Thank you.
I don't want to stop progress in the meeting.
Great. We just kind of looked at the overall work plan
Gotcha.
that I had proposed, and I was asking for comments. And first comment was, are we also going to look at the process for how these are awarded? And just to, I guess, to begin to formulate what we're looking at. The most common types of tax incentives are the tax increment financing, which has been thoroughly studied. So I think all we'll do from that standpoint is let Charles Robert give us a quick recap on what that group did and concluded, and then also maybe what the study concluded. Come back to that one. There's also a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, which is works sort of similarly, but is awarded by different agencies and for different functions. And then we also do, there are pilots that are related to affordable housing that MDHA awards the pilots to simply to offset expenses that the state makes them pay only in Tennessee and nowhere else in the world when they get low-income housing tax credits. So that's one type of tax abatement that we do for affordable housing. And we also have a number of tax abatements that we've done for economic development, also called pilots. And I've got a list of sort of all of the outstanding projects of those, which I will make sure get into everybody's. I sent that out, I think, right like about an hour ago, so you may or may not have a copy of that. And we can either make a pledge to go paperless, or we can say I'll work better with paper in front of me, and I will try to have paper in front of us for the next one. Let me know. Some of y'all look young enough that I like paper.
I like paper.
I'm a paper person.
I need paper.
Yeah.
So we'll have hard copies.
I think better.
If that's helpful. But there are, and I can.
As he came with this spiral notebook.
Right. But just to do a quick recap. And then Councilmember Mendez, who has been an unwavering advocate for just Metro being more deliberate in thinking through. These are all good things that we are providing tax abatements for, but we need to have a comprehensive plan for how many of them can we afford to do, and what is the process? How do we decide which ones deserve and which ones don't? So far, we haven't had a limit, to say you're in and you're out. It's kind of been if it's a worthy project, we've let it happen. But if you sit down and add up what all those things are, it ends up being, according to his projections, headed towards $87 million out of our $2.7 or $8 billion.
Oh no, of an annual budget.
On an annual budget, sort of, and that's mostly just taxes that we don't get because we believe they're providing a benefit or creating more taxes by being there.
Can I ask a question? Are we only focusing on tax abatement? Just curious about sales tax and any type of additive.
All right, this is where I'm going to ask some of the financial wizards in the room. To my knowledge, the state allows us, under only very specific conditions, to not charge property tax for certain things through certain mechanisms, and we use those as tools to make things happen through development projects. And that's kind of what has motivated this discussion. But the overall question is, what does Metro value so much that we are willing to forego revenue on the very front end? And sales tax is a kind of revenue that we get. So I would just throw that question to the rest of the group for discussion first.
And I think it's not just forego, and again, I don't know if this has been studied before, but incrementally, if we're not capped out at sales tax, is there an increment to add on in a district to capture? So it's not forgoing necessarily, but for developments to recapture. Again, it's just a vehicle seen in other places. So just, I didn't know if we were just solely focusing on property tax.
Comments?
Doesn't downtown have an additional sales tax?
There are business improvement districts that, assess themselves, additional additional amounts for downtown. It's for safe and clean and things like that. There's one in South Nashville as well. That's a different mechanism. It's decided on by that group for their own benefit. It's again enabled by state legislation. It's blessed at the council level, but it's not. That's a very local thing that benefits that area in a way that area chooses and assesses themselves. So I think that the business improvement district model is not necessarily in our purview.
And it doesn't negatively impact the general fund, whereas these types of tax incentives that you described earlier are all things that have an impact on the annual general fund, right? Is that these other ones, sales tax things, are additional that they can then choose to deploy for other things, but it doesn't impact it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a bit of a distinction, even to Councilmember Mendez's point, which I think is well taken. But if TIF is done right, and the study that MDHA commissioned and released last fall supports this notion, I think, as much as anything, is that if it's true to the but-for test, right, and if you're utilizing however much TIF increment that you think is appropriate, it is property tax revenue that the city wouldn't be getting otherwise if it had not made the TIF available. And I think particularly with one of the recommendations that came out of the last committee that I think is now policy, which is that I think you go up to 75% of the increment. You can't ever get to 100% of the increment, because whatever your debt service is as a percentage of your overall budget, which I think is 6% in that, or comes down. So you had like 92 or 94% of it to start with. And then what that committee came back and said was, well, as a result of this, and even with the but-for, Metro and the general fund still ought to participate from that from day one. And so therefore, let's lower it to 75. So in theory, of that increment, any new TIF deal that particularly would be done through a redevelopment district through MDHA, 25% of that would go to the general fund, 75% of that would go to the TIF loan. The Oracle deal that was done through the IDB, separate apart from how you would do it at MDHA, is 50-50. So from all of those new property taxes as a part of the campus of where that infrastructure is coming from, I believe 50 cents on that comes back to the general fund, and 50 cents to go towards repaying that TIF. And it is a distinction. I mean, I think we're all saying the same thing. 87 million is the right number, whoever's quantified that. Yeah. But it's also a little bit of a misnomer to assume that that 87 million would exist had you not done the TIF in the first place.
Sure.
That's a good point.
No, totally. I guess I was more just I guess I look at this as a toolbox, right, for people, and whether the tools we're looking at, and TIF being one of them, pilot, or if sales tax or anything was something we'd be exploring, that's all.
Kelly, can you speak to that a little bit?
I think if I understand the charge of this task force, how about that?
The Study and Formulating Committee, I think.
Committee, sorry.
Designation.
It is to look at existing programs and identify them, because there are a lot of them, and we talk a lot about TIF and pilots, but they're in the 18 or so months I've been here, I can think of at least 3 that have been created. And so I'm interested in Councilmember Mendez's analysis. Is it just ones that have been approved and have projects attached to them? Is it if you took them all the way up to the extreme? So I think we got to come up with the universe first. But I think there's enough meat on that bone in a 6-month time frame if we just focus on the existing programs that provide property tax abatements. That menu, we could come up with, I don't know if it's policy or if it's a recommendation to draft a policy, or if it's here's what the number is, and we think we should look at other tools, and it might look like a sales tax, but I don't think coming up with revenue sources, maybe that's round 2, 3, or 4 of this,
Yeah.
but probably not the infancy.
Yeah, and again, our charge was to study how Metro government has utilized and could utilize tax incentives so the property gets used in a way that contributes to the public good, and then formulate recommendations.
Yeah, I think the one thing I could use a little direction on is as we're putting together that universe, and it sounds super easy, but I think it's going to require someone from law helping us just going through ordinances and what is out there that we don't use
Right.
frequently but already exists. And but how do we want to treat kind of the TIF study did a lot with the MDHA work, but on the IDB piece, which we've only got a couple so far,
IDB is Industrial Development
Sorry.
Board, so.
how do we want to look at those two kind of metro entities, but not really as part of this process? Do we? I mean, I think we have to.
You should, yeah.
We must,
We got to say that out loud.
Yeah.
based on my
Yeah,
involvement since.
and then, I mean, I think the Oracle thing, that's a participation agreement, essentially, as opposed to an honest-to-goodness TIF. Is it wrong to make the distinction, or?
I mean, I think it's in how it's described,
Yeah.
in part there, which is not that different from any other TIF. You're asking the developer or the owner to front that cost. And so I don't know whether Oracle will pay that themselves or whether they'll go finance it with the property taxes being the revenue stream to pay off that piece of it. But it's kind of both, right? I mean, it was the idea that, hey, we're going to ask Oracle to put in all of this infrastructure, and we're going to ask them to pay for all of this infrastructure. And as a result of doing that, we're going to reimburse them 50% of that. And the mechanism for reimbursing them 50% of that is a TIF.
Is the tax abatement, yeah.
And is it 50% of the cost, or is it 50% of future tax revenues over a period of time?
So, and I'm gonna exceed my knowledge as a lawyer here. Any TIF that is done, if the debt service piece of that, or the revenue streams coming from those property taxes are going to be more than 20 years, you have to specifically get approval from the comptroller and from the Tennessee Department of Economic and Community Development, and then you can push it up to 30. And I don't know that this will answer your question specifically, but essentially you have a cap. And I wasn't involved in the Oracle deal and only know what I read in the newspaper, but I believe my understanding was that cap was going to be half of what that infrastructure cost was, approximately $150 million being the half. And I don't know whether it was set up for 30 years or whatever, but at some point, if the revenues over that 30-year period are not enough to pay back the entire $150 million or whatever the increment is, that's non-recourse to the city, non-recourse to IDB. They're not stepping up to pay that. If it gets paid earlier, so be it. It was a great deal for everybody, and it's returning 100% of that increment to the city sooner rather than anticipated.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So, and I don't want to dump too much on y'all, but I think you're right, Kelly. One of the first things we need to do is identify all the tools in that universe of tax abatements that are out there likely to be used, and sort of have an understanding what the processes is or what agency they're awarded through. Is that something that you've sort of gathered into a spot just as you've stumbled across them, or?
No.
It's not gathered. I looked
It's
when
not
I first IDB landed in my lap. I was like, okay. I had several conversations with a lot of people. It's not gathered. We probably need to gather where all the tools are.
Yeah, and the IDB piece would really just kind of be TIF. It's all the council, and I can't remember the one we just recently did with you with the sponsor for
The Nancy Van Rees one?
no I say recently, I guess it's
Mixed
probably been a year
income pilot.
because time is no meaning anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one with downtown development.
Yeah.
But that one had a cap on it of how much we could spend, and I don't mean like a TIF cap. Like I meant, we said this
Remaining year, yeah.
Yeah, and it had an expiration date. It's not a TIF at all. It didn't go to IDB.
Yeah,
Nothing to do with
yeah.
IDB.
Which one is it?
It's the mixed income pilot that the Health and Ed Board.
It may have been right before you got here.
Okay.
But kind of those, and I think it had an expiration date too. It was more of a pilot program, and so that they all are obviously in ordinances and improved somewhere, but no one ever, at least to my knowledge, took the time to kind of take them and say all these should live in an electronic toolbox somewhere.
And they should.
Yeah, so I think that is, well, it sounds really
Why we're
easy. It's
here.
probably going to be the hardest part of this whole committee is assembling that.
I was going to ask about that. We were talking about IDB and MDHA. I was thinking that Health and Ed Board should be included in those groups of financing-esque entities that Metro has at its support the good governance.
Right. We do, and state law spells out very specifically who can do what, which is kind of how different entities end up with different things like that. So I think one of the things that will need to happen early on in this process is the gathering of that. And I guess one of the things that we can work our way through today is just kind of figure out how much we can ask y'all to help us and what our resources are to try to gather those things together.
Sorry to be dense here, but is this gathering existing tools and then there's another separate gathering of what could be?
Yeah, and I think part of what could be is what are other cities doing, which I think is an important piece of that as well. So I guess I'm going to get down on my knees and just ask.
Sorry, maybe just clarifying that. I guess I thought when you were saying what other cities are doing, or if they have a TIF policy or a abatement policy, does it have a cap on it? Not what other tools are other cities using for economic development or affordable housing, because again, I feel like that is step 4, 5, 6 of this process. We've got all of these tools. We don't know where they all are.
Right.
We haven't built the box to even put them in. And how do we treat those before we try and figure out what we need to come up with? So
From other things.
I think that's pretty far away. And within MDHA and IDB, do we have the appropriate administration, governance of those entities for the tools we currently have before we contemplate adding new ones? Because maybe we don't need them all, right? Like maybe we have things in the fact that we don't know what we have probably means we have some things we don't need, right? And so I think before we come up with solutions, we got to identify the problem.
What we've got.
The opportunity.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we need to move from the royal we to the who's going to assign this to piece of thing. Because I know we were all getting ready to start budget process and everyone is busy. You're our IDB queen. So can I put you in charge of just ensuring that we know everything the IDB can do in turn, or what they're okay? So all right. So I'm assigning that to LaTanya. All right, and then MDHA. Mr. Bone used to be the.
Long ago.
Yeah.
It seemed like long ago.
Seemed like long ago. And far
Their
away.
website's pretty robust.
Yeah.
I imagine it's covered in the reports, both the previous committee report as well as that partners or whoever it was who did the.
Yeah.
Our one just covered MDHA.
Yes, that was just MDHA. So that's just part of your recap of that.
There's also an annual report that MDHA puts out, just the status of TIF loan balances, any new TIF loans, which I don't think have been any. And it shows kind of each of the projects that may be picked back up in that same report, but there is an annual report that comes out as well.
Right, right.
IDB has to do an annual report as well to the state. I think it was just.
Gotcha. And I've, as I sent out, I've got sort of, here's everything I know that's outstanding now in the big obvious kinds of things, which are the pilot pilots, and I don't believe this group is talking about job grants, because that is money the city actually spends, and we haven't done many of those in a while. So I'm just going to say that's off the table for this discussion, unless.
I think that's right, because it's, all dollars green at that point. It's not specific to property tax.
Right. Right, and it's not but for money, I don't think, so I'm not including that one. Mixed income pilot, I'll chase down that one. I guess the participation agreements is sort of we've got this funny thing, like we do participation agreements with Joe Blow building Joe Blow developer who's building an office building. They'll help do a water project or something like that. Do we include those in this or not? I think that may be outside the scope. I'm open to conversation on that.
I think it's probably a tool you would note, but it's not being paid for. My understanding is on those participation agreements, the city has the ability to either fund it out of the general fund and/or include it in the capital spending plan as a part of its annual payments or catch-up payment on those. But it's another way of kind of doing the same thing.
Right. Okay. All right, so we've covered those three. And then Kelly and Margaret, if I can just ask y'all to be on the lookout, and if you stumble across things that don't fit into that category that we need to be being aware of, if you'll make me aware of that, so that we can just chase down and what's out there and how much money are we not getting from it now?
Yeah, or is it just sitting there and we've never used it?
Or is it sitting there?
One and done and it expired, but the program still lives,
Right.
but no one's utilizing it.
Right. Like, I guess the HIP is the housing income pilot.
Yeah, that's another one we should be. And that one just gets, this is, I was thinking of going through this, we've got MDHA, IDB, Health and Ed Board. I was thinking that, we could maybe have, I don't know if it's within the bounds of this group, but having someone from MDHA, looking at Joe Kane or Dr. White or someone come and just do 10 minutes being like, this is what we're doing,
Right.
using this voice, how it works. Similar maybe for the IDB and similar for the Health and Ed Board. Maybe that could be, we could get a lot of this information pretty quickly by just having the experts here. And I don't know if that's within our...
Yeah, no, I think that's
I think
absolutely.
the other thing Joe could do, which and this happened with the previous committee too, but I think is helpful for the committee and for the public to understand the process, right? Because it seems so mysterious, and who qualifies for TIF,
Right.
who doesn't, why is it being used in certain areas and not well used in other areas. You've got obviously some of your redevelopment districts that are obvious, that downtown, the Gulch, et cetera, that were maxed out over the years, and then you've got others that have never been used or only utilized somewhat. But I think Joe could be very helpful in walking us through, because there is a process, and when you learn the process, it becomes somewhat more intuitive about where and why it's been used and where and why it hasn't been used. I think part of the charge where we end up is same as there is, can we begin to kind of tweak this or tweak how we think about it so that it does get used on a more diverse basis, geographically, project type, developer type, to make this a broader tool. Because I do think what that previous committee did, all the tools in the toolbox at times they fall out of favor, right? And so we were coming through a period where people were very critical of TIF. And it's easy to be critical of TIF when you look backwards, right? Because if you take under the Purcell administration, the thought was, hey, we'll use TIF to incentivize downtown multifamily, downtown residential, which we don't have. Then it began to shift towards what we need, hotels, right? And so you look at it today, and the idea that you would have used TIF as a part of the Omni Hotel, and you think, why in the world would we have ever incentivized a hotel 14 years ago, but it didn't exist then, right? And so it almost proves part of the point, but it's a part of this to begin to kind of shift our thinking of where are the priorities today? How can we make this, and there are limitations on state law, but how can we use phrase this in a way that is supportive of affordable housing, retail. I mean, for a while in this city, we would have said, well, we would never use TIF for retail, right? Well, you take Fifth and Broad, you take what was done in Bellevue, and then all of a sudden it becomes, okay, well, this looks different today and different purposes today. But I think Joe could help walk through the process in that, and then we could also obviously help kind of recalibrate some of those priorities.
I think another question too, and this is coming up at the IDB, who's coincidentally doing some training next week, is, looking at the applicant versus looking at the benefits on the other side. There's an argument that exists, well, if the applicant fits in this particular box, we should always say no. Versus if the city says these are our priorities and these are the benefits that we want on the back end, doesn't matter who the applicant is. So there's that discussion and argument and theory, I guess.
Yeah,
And then also, back to Kelly's point about governance and processes, we're currently grappling with, there's no process really for the IDB that's documented. So, at least that's what I've been grappling with since that arrived. So, that'll be a part of this discussion as well. And
Yes.
hopefully we can get to that point where it's not mysterious to anyone.
So I think maybe not the very next meeting, but 2 meetings away, then we would invite those experts from the different committees to talk about their process and how they award that.
And do we have an idea? It just sounds like there's like a treasure trove of things that maybe we don't know. Is it these 3?
Mainly, I did find the list that I had written down. We know MDHA TIF is the big one, and that's
Right,
what's
and
done all the
IDB.
redevelopment districts. And then the industrial development pilot, right now the big one is in southeast Nashville,
Right.
where they redeveloped the Red
IDB
Mall.
can do TIFs too. Madison Station came
Yeah,
from IDB.
and that's a TIF, exactly right. And then MDHA does the pilots for low-income housing tax credit projects, which is making affordable housing happen. And the HEFB, Health and Ed Board, now does pilots for the mixed income pilot, and I think they do others as, help me out, Margaret, on this one.
Health and Ed Board.
Yeah. Or do they just?
That might be they may have one other pilot. They don't do pilots a lot because they don't have the staffing with the mixed income housing pilot. The housing folks over in planning agreed to do the staffing for that. Other than that, they just didn't have the staff to do the work.
Okay, so mostly what they do is issue bonds.
Correct.
For other projects, okay. And then the East Bank TIF, that's another MDHA TIF. Historic districts, we do have tax abatements to incentivize preservation of historic properties. Some of that's state tax and other things. And then we have created the tax-oriented development district, but have never used it because there were just some things to work out there. So that's, it's not tax, transit-oriented development.
And that's another form of TIF, right? Is that a subset of TIF, or is that different?
It's a subset of TIF. Right now, the only place that's ever tried to do it was Donaldson, and the problem was that they set it up so that the entire 145 acres or 145 properties, whatever is a lot, was going to say any new taxes here is going back into this district instead into the general fund, and that seemed to be a flawed model.
Yeah.
But we desperately need transit, so that was another one. And then part of the discussion I want us to have is we've gone from blighted areas to residential downtown to retail in places where we can't get it to now affordable housing is the big thing we need. Our child care and grocery store is the next thing, and is there a way to sort of say here's today's thing or the next 2-year period, but we know there will be something 5 years from now that we can't even imagine, and put in place the process for that to be for a review process on a regular basis to just update as the needs arrive. That's what I see us doing. But those, as I thought through what have I seen us give tax breaks for, that's kind of the list that's my universe so far that I know about.
And I guess I just go back to, we have needs, right, that there's no funding mechanism or no incentive. And some of these deals developers are facing, it's just a tough time to get deals done. So then trying to compress that. But then ultimately there's things that are important, even infrastructure, because a lot of projects are being saddled because there's not enough to do larger capital projects. Then it's each development is getting saddled with something above and beyond probably that is proportional, and I know that that could be debated. But it's, if we are just looking, I mean, ultimately, I'm just going to take large chunks are being developed, Midtown, East, but also smaller, are we, and maybe this is what we're going to answer over the next 6 months, but are we looking just at the existing toolbox and saying, how can these people come to the table? I do feel like there's other tools, but if that's not, because I don't want to name developments, but, infrastructure is something that is definitely taxing as well.
And in some ways, the participation agreement that we're doing with Oracle, it's just sort of, we've said to them, all these roads and water and sewer things need to be built before your development can happen. And they said, we'll build them if you'll let us pay ourselves back from our property taxes. So that's, so they're, they're paying for it on the front end, but then they're benefiting from it by not having to pay the entire property tax down the road for the next 20 years.
And let me ask this a different way, I guess, because it's trying to look, two things. It's so, Sally, the developer, has a chunk, this is getting a way for, or whatever project, she can go to some place and get all of the tools and figure out what is possible. And whether or not, because previously it's been for incentive for large economic deals, or there was a specific area. And that's where, can developers take advantage? And that's one thing I guess we will figure out during this of the existing tools, but also is there an opportunity to look at infrastructure as a second question in areas like the Kerrigan Basin that's at capacity?
Right.
And so, are there certain areas that can recapture for infrastructure or whatnot?
Which would be like creating a new
district, where it's not specific to a project, but it's specific to something that's really struggling infrastructure-wise. I don't know. I'm just
that
trying
may
to.
be a good question for Dr. White when we.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to get a handle of, and I'm sure this will evolve of what we can look at.
And I don't know if this is hearing this right, but I sort of feel like, to Kelly's point earlier, I think it makes sense to look at what we have out there now as a starting point. But I wouldn't necessarily, I think we need to get our arms around that, but I wouldn't want to sort of foreclose the discussion of what else is happening out there in the world. But I do agree that I think we should definitely start with what's out there now. And I think these categories, for me, okay, this board does this board does that, this board does that. And one of the things I think what I'm hearing is we can sort of isolate what's going on at IDB and Health Net Board and MBHA, but it also sounds like there's council-specific tax incentive programs like the HIP program. And I'd love to figure out, and maybe Kelly, that's what you're referring to, that's kind of like, can we track down all the different tools that have been established? Now, does the HIP program have a twilight on it? I remember the initial...
It did, but I think we've untwilighted it.
Okay. And so what is still sort of been done in the past and still active right now would be a great thing for us to know. And so I do think that participation agreement aspect of it does, if this is, it should be included in this discussion. Because I don't know, but like maybe in the end we're like, everything should be a participation agreement. I don't think that's the case, or I have actually no idea whether that's the case or not, but I think there is a possibility once we've looked at everything that we'll figure out, we've got some overlap here and some redundancy that's not useful, and this is actually a really useful tool that nobody knows about. So I don't know. That's
okay. That sounds good. So what I would, this is helpful. What I would propose is, I want to make this an hour meeting. We may, when we have something really juicy, make it an hour and a half. But in general, I would love to kind of talk about what schedule will work for us on a regular basis. The other committee met 11 times in 6 months. That's pretty close to twice a month. I don't know that we will necessarily need to do that. I would like to sort of feel like we figured out what our rhythm is, and then maybe when we know we can do it once a month, we'll go to that. But if folks would be willing to meet, or I'm open for ideas on that. I think it will probably take us more than 6, maybe less than 11. So let's say that that's what we're hoping for. None. Let's do 9. That sounds good to me. But I don't know that we can meet every 3 weeks because there's no way I'll be able to keep up with that. So just in general, Wednesdays at 2 a great time or a terrible time, but thank you so much for making it work? Or would Wednesdays at 5:30 be better? Or this was the only Wednesday in your life when this could have worked and we should be looking at another day? So let me just start with, was Wednesday, I know Wednesday at 2 was a little tricky for a couple of y'all. Would Wednesday at 5:30 in general be better if we know 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time? And from the staff who is nicely here, but it's during your day right now, so that's no big deal. Is it a deal
We'll be
breaker? for you?
available whenever
Okay.
works for the committee.
All right. 2 or 5:30, does it?
5:30 is better for
5:30 is
me,
better?
but I can do 2.
I'd say probably the other way around, but I can make 5:30 work.
Okay.
My office is downstairs, so whichever works.
That's all right, I got a free parking spot.
I can do either.
Okay. Anyone?
Yes, I'll make 5:30 work.
Okay, so for 2 of you, that's better. Apologies to Henry.
No,
Okay.
that's all right.
And to Caitlin. Well, let's say that we're gonna meet. This is the first Wednesday of the month. For sure, the first Wednesday of every month at 5:30. Unless that sounds terrible. And first Wednesday of the month. In this room, this seems to work. As the crowds swell, we can move into the chambers, but I think we're
This
safe.
might be the most we ever have.
I think we're safe for now. Well, I'm grateful for everyone who's here. And if I will work with folks around here to make sure that we've got, that we can get the folks who can tell us about those processes for the existing ones for the first meeting in March. And then my question would be, I mean, I had kind of thrown out, I had sort of done an 11 meeting plan, which would start with us reviewing the history and the TIF report, which we've kind of done now. That everybody's got a copy of the TIF report. And Charles, I'll give you 2 minutes to talk about it in a minute. And then we can have the directors come and talk about that. At some point, I want us to have a good discussion about what are the things that are important for Nashville right now that need to kind of be top of mind, and then to look at the budget overview and what does it do to skim money off the top for your revenue projections. There's statements in here about how difficult it is for you to make revenue projections when we're pulling money out, but it seems like if we've spelled out what we're pulling out, that should be a known to you. I don't know.
Yeah, there's the definitive projects that have been approved. The struggle is that there are programs that allow for projects to be added on, and how do you manage for that? It's going to be unknown. And so what I'm hoping a takeaway that comes out of this would be, and I don't know if it's a recommendation to create a policy or to actually create that policy, but should we have a monetary cap or number of like what does that look like? Is it specific to TIF, or is it pilot, or is it all abatements combined, or do we want to come up with an allocation? And I have no view. I don't know where we land, but that's the kind of guidance that I think would be helpful going forward.
Gotcha. So that's a very specific discussion that I think will.
Yeah, I think the one thing that might be helpful, and education's not the right word because I don't want to suggest that we're not all informed, but and Joe Kane could probably do it just because he knows everything about everything, but there is a reason that some go to MDHA and some go to TIF, and it's state statute, and so just basic things like that might be where we want to start before everyone comes in, but I don't want to throw Joe under the bus, but I can't think of anyone else like that would actually, I wouldn't say Margaret if she weren't council, just because you have all the history, but I can't think of anyone in law that kind of has it in the way that he knows everything, unless you can think, but somebody that could do like a 10 or 15 minute, here's why this goes here, just to set the table maybe. Can you think of anybody magical?
What about Josh? Does he know that history?
He's kind of new too, yeah.
He's my go-to for IDB, but I don't know if he's...
Yeah, you can always find my answer, but I don't know if he knows enough to tell us what we need to know.
got you.
Okay. Gotcha.
Unless, Margaret, you want to do it. See, that might not be fun.
I'm happy to answer questions and chime in where needed.
Okay, we appreciate that. that's a useful thing.
She's trying to run the clock out.
We're going in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna say I'm gonna work with all the people here to make sure that the next meeting has all the right people here. I would like and we're gonna meet first meeting of the month at 5:30 on first Wednesday of the month at 5:30. Let's for now say our next meeting is March 2nd.
March the 1st.
Yeah, because this is not leap year. And there will be lots of homework between now and then we'll have some experts come and talk to us about that, and then we may be coming every 2 week or twice a month group at that point. I wanted us to kind of spend some time getting to know each other before we elect a chair. So I'm going to propose that we do that at the next meeting, just because we just met each other. So let's learn more about who's bossy and who.
You're doing great.
Who will listen. Whatever.
It also means don't miss that meeting.
Don't miss that meeting, or you get voluntold. There you go. There you go. So I just throw that suggestion out there, unless people object violently. That's what I would suggest. And then before we adjourn in 3 minutes, Charles Robert, can you think of anything you want to tell us as a group as we go forth to our next month of homework and thinking that you learned from the first go-round?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that was helpful, and it sounds like this is where we might head on the next meeting, is it kind of started a little bit with TIF 101, which wasn't just for the committee, but was also for anybody that ever wanted to view this, in part because TIF had gotten misinterpreted along the way in terms of, I think people began to think it was just a direct handout incentive with MDHA writing somebody a check, and it was for everybody who came and asked, or a certain group that came and asked for it. And people began to realize that, it is recourse to the developer, that it is somebody that has to guarantee it, it is non-recourse to the city, et cetera, and kind of, again, where it had been used and why we weren't making it done and why. And as a part of that, we also heard from a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, we heard from those who are in the affordable housing space and heard how complicated it is to finance those projects and the capital stack, and that some of these you couldn't do it without. And so I think it was both part of that was a real education process, but at the same time was to begin to make some recommendations of saying, okay, we had these policies, but nobody really knew what they were. We had an application, nobody knew how to access it, and begin to say, such as, from a policy standpoint, how much of the increment is going to be returned to the city. And that might change in the future, right? At the time, it felt like we were struggling from a budget standpoint and we were foregoing these dollars. You could be in a much different position 10 years from now where somebody's viewpoint was to say, hey, we ought to use 100% of that to pay back the increment and get it paid back as fast as possible, and then we benefit from it. But I think kind of like the types of uses that you want to incentivize or push the programs towards, you ought to have this ability to kind of relook at it from time to time and say, is it meeting the priorities of today? Because as we articulate housing, food deserts, transportation, infrastructure, whatever it is today, is likely going to be something different 5 years from now. And there is a bit, at least on the MDHA side, there is a bit of a mechanism in place because these redevelopment districts do have a lifespan to them where they got to come back to council and be reapproved with a new plan, and that spelled that out too. So it just kind of cleaned all of that up and was intended to kind of sanitize the tool so that people understood that, hey, this is a really powerful tool when used appropriately. And I think for this committee, as we begin to look in the future about using this tool, when it is approved by MDHA or approved by the IDB and comes to council, it's easy for me to say, well, we're approving this project because we can look back on the study, and that's exactly what this fits those parameters, right?
Right.
You got to balance that with some flexibility so that you continue to be able to use it for the right things. But I think using that March 1 is a little bit of a just TIF 101. What is TIF? How is it being used? How is it being operated? And then kind of use that as a launching point to say, well, yeah, we had that in 2018 or wherever it is. Let's fast forward to 5 years now and look at this from a different viewpoint.
Sounds good. Other thoughts, comments, questions? Okay, so we're going to make sure the website is up, get all kinds of documents on there, line up experts to speak at the next meeting, and then talk about whether we'll meet twice in March or once in March. But for now, March 1, and maybe pencil March 15 on your calendar, just not let it get filled up. Margaret.
The website is up.
Yes.
The documents that you shared earlier are on there now, and I've shared that with everyone here, or everyone that was on the email list. Josh Thomas is the attorney from legal who's going to be assigned to come to this committee, so he'll be available.
Okay, great.
And if there are other documents that you wish to be uploaded to the website, let us know, and I can have someone in our office, be the point person to make sure that those things get uploaded.
Okay, but we'll start with you for now.
Yep.
Until you tell us to send them to someone else. That's great. And where is that linked? Is there a logical path to follow?
There's a SharePoint link, and I have sent it to you in the email. If you have a problem with getting logged into it or having permission to get on there, just let me know, and we'll get that figured out.
And will it become something the general public can get
It
to?
should be something that the general public can get to.
Okay, great.
So it should be open to the public, but sometimes I have found that in the beginning, SharePoint locations are finicky, and so we'll try to get that figured out, make sure it's all figured out. But please let me know if you have trouble getting access.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
Because maybe if we could link it through the council resources or something, because I think the TIF committee, or through budget, whichever makes sense.
I think it's on there's a committees page, and it's on the committees page.
Okay. If you forget, that sounds good. Kelly, anything else you want to add? Okay.
I don't think so.
Good. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I think we're going to do some important stuff, and I appreciate everybody making the time to be here. And I'll send out an email and see you in a month.
Awesome.
We're adjourned. All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.